Hello, my name is Shelby Adams, and I'm a junior criminology law and society major and the current student body president. The Student Voice Committee consists of undergraduate and graduate students representing a variety of racial, ethnic, socioeconomic class, gender and sexuality, nationality, ability status, and creed expression, many occupying overlapping identities. Members of the Student Voice Committee were represented on each of the subcommittees. By having students embedded in other subcommittees allowed for student voice to be in the midst of decisions and recommendations set forth by each of the committees. Because Black, Indigenous, students of color experience racism and bigotry in the university setting differently than faculty and staff, the Student Voice Committee created the opportunity for more input from student leaders to discuss the student experience and campus climate. Students were part of each of the committees, and our ideas were heard, and some of the ideas were incorporated within the final report. Our approach was to make recommendations to ensure that students' perspectives were included. Today, I'll be talking about one of the Student Voices Committee's concerns about the current policing format. We want to ensure that we identify the difference between community policing versus traditional policing. The Student Voice Committee prefers one that emphasizes community policing, which focuses on strengthening and creating an actual relationship within the Mason community between Mason PD and GMU students. As a community, we need to stray away from policing where police presence is only notable in times of danger. Our group wants to ensure transparency behind our policing format, especially with the new Policing Council. The recommendations of the Student Voice Committee is that the new Policing Council maintains a primary focus on student engagement, creates plans for community building, and additional training on handling incidents that transpire with Black, Indigenous people of color, including but not limited to racial profiling and over-surveillance. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to continuing to incorporate student voice in this work.
Good afternoon. My name is Joshua Miller, and I am a senior studying integrative studies with a concentration in social justice and human rights, with a minor in African and African American studies. I also serve proudly as the president of the Untitled Chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated here at George Mason. Black feminist theorist R.G. Lloyd once wrote, "I have come to believe over and over again that what is most important to me must be spoken, made verbal, and shared, even at the risk of having it bruised or misunderstood." I stand before you today in full transparency and in truth, the same truth that belongs to far too many students that have walked the halls of George Mason University. A silent truth that's expected to be kept to ourselves, hidden from the light of day in fear of being taken, misconstrued, mislabeled, misconstructed, and thrown back in our faces. We are sold this dream here of diversity and inclusion, yet the experiences of so many BIPOC students on this campus, including my own, reflect a much different reality. This hard truth is uncomfortable to sit with, and quite frankly, it should be. It should make us uncomfortable that RAs fear calling Mason PD in emergency situations, in fear of being met with hostility or aggression. It should make us uncomfortable that Black students are often singled out and left defending themselves and their culture in a majority white classroom. It should make us uncomfortable that BIPOC students' concerns, complaints, and suggestions about how they are being treated and how they're being taught are largely disregarded and overlooked. This is why I personally stepped up to join the Anti-Racism and Inclusive Excellence Task Force, to have a seat at the table with the administration, representing my community who feels as though their voices are never heard and never respected. This task force strives to, make George Mason a university, a beacon of racial equity and education with students, staff, and faculty at the helm. This, above all else, gives students the voice, a chance to construct and reshape the institution's ideologies and pedagogy into something that is inclusive to the most marginalized and intersectional identities among us. We take on this work and we do this work because we will never be free until all of us are free. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Hello, my name is Sherelle Hassel-Goodman, and I'm a PhD candidate in the higher education program with a focus in women and gender studies and social justice. Being a part of the Anti-Racism and Inclusive Excellence Task Force has been meaningful for me to work alongside other students that are so passionate about racial injustice and inclusion, as you heard from Joshua and Shelby. In order to begin to change the climate at George Mason University and make anti-racism and inclusion a priority, we make the following recommendations. We want to see anti-racism reflected in research. When thinking about larger structures, considering what are the barriers present that impact and limit diverse research agendas? How might we amplify scholars at Mason who study anti-racism and systematic racism and oppression? And how might their research inform our practice at Mason? Regarding pedagogy, students felt that there were not enough courses available that focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Students would like to see at least one required course within each of the Mason core with a learning outcome related to anti-racism. We are concerned about the classroom environment and would like to see that course evaluations include a line item that directly asks how this course and instructor create an atmosphere for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Students also expressed concerns with faculty facilitating difficult conversations in the classroom. We would like to see more training and professional development for faculty on creating inclusive classrooms. For community engagement, our committee wanted to consider the impact of coloniality on campus in terms of how we recognize the land Mason was built on and the Native community that inhabited this land prior to it becoming GMU, as Dr. Emmanuel Scott so beautifully did today. Our committee recommends land acknowledgement to honor and respect Indigenous peoples and acknowledge Indigenous histories. Finally, one of our last recommendations is around how departments and units monitor incidents of racial injustice. We heard from a variety of students about the pain of racism and navigating spaces not built with them in mind. We know our Muslim students experience Islamophobia. Our Jewish students navigate anti-Semitism. Asian students experience microaggressions and model minority myths. Our LGBTQIA students experience homophobia and bias around gender expression. All of these forms of oppression have created concerns around transparency and investigating bias campus incidents. As a biracial student with a disability myself, sometimes I don't feel seen in the classroom. We believe in transparency in the spirit of accountability for all students to feel safe and respected. We are excited for the future and Mason's power to become an inclusive and racially just community.